Stupid is as stupid does. If there's ever been a real-life example of play stupid games and win stupid prizes, I'm it. Seriously, this story could be epic. I'm here to share what happened to me. I asked my husband if we could try an open marriage. He agreed, but then he ended up replacing me with someone else. Our neighbor. She's younger, more successful, and in my gut, I suspect he was seeing her before I even brought it up. But I don't have any proof. I'm 47 years old now, and my ex-husband is 53. He's always been into sports, even played American football overseas after college. Around here at Dundee High, he's the head coach. Before that, he spent years as the wide receiver coach and has already won 2 state championships since taking the lead. He's always been good to me, never left me wanting for anything. Our daughter has always had everything she needs, even though I work too. The money from his business has been more than enough for us. He's even covering all our daughter's college tuition and her car. Our sex life? Well, it's always been great. He's dedicated to staying in shape, hitting the gym 6 days a week, and sticking to a super healthy diet. He's got a strict routine when it comes to food, and I had it down to a science for him. Now, I know what you're thinking. If he's so great, why mess up your marriage? Well, here's the thing. I started getting attention from other men after I lost some weight, and it made me feel young again, like I was desirable. My husband was the one who helped me shed 70 pounds. He pushed me hard, but I did it. I'll admit here on the True Story channel, I cheated on him once before, years ago. After our daughter was born, I gained weight and felt awful about myself. I couldn't believe that a guy as hot as my husband would still want me, so I accused him of cheating. Then, after losing the weight, I cheated on him with my trainer at the time. I got pregnant, but I ended the pregnancy. I'm 100% certain our daughter is my husband's. There's no doubt about it. Back then, he was the only other person I was with. My husband has never raised his voice at me or hurt me in any way. I've seen him yank football players off the field, and he's even had a fight with a parent during practice. He's tough, no doubt, but with me and our daughter, he's always been protective and gentle. I doubt any of his players have seen the side of him that we see. The man who walks out the door is completely different from the one we know at home. And yet, despite how perfect he's been, I still cheated on him once. And then I had the nerve to ask for an open marriage. For anyone curious about why someone would ask for an open marriage, I can tell you one reason. Insecurity. At least that was my reason. I was insecure about my weight, and after I lost it, I loved the way other men started noticing me. I figured it was only a matter of time before I'd gain the weight back, fall victim to this American diet again, and then my husband would leave, especially with our daughter out of the house. So, I thought I should make the most of the opportunity while I still had it, because once I gained the weight back, no one would want me. But I didn't want to sneak around, so I brought it up to my husband over dinner and asked for an open marriage. I was sitting at the table with my husband, like we did every evening, even after our daughter went off to school. We made it a point to have dinner together. In the middle of our usual conversation, I stopped him, saying there was something I needed to get off my chest, something that had been weighing heavily on me. He looked at me with that reassuring smile and said, "Sure, you can tell me anything, you know that." But I was scared. Really scared. Like I'd never been before. This was the first time I was genuinely afraid of how he might react. I wasn't going to sneak around and cheat on him. I knew that for sure. So this seemed like the best way to handle things. So I started, "Well, honey, we've been married a long time. And I love you. And I know you love me. But I've noticed you looking at some younger women when we're out grocery shopping, like the ones in their yoga pants." He laughed it off and said, "No way, I don't look at other women. I'd never disrespect you like that." "Honey, have you ever caught me checking out other women?" I nodded and told him, "Yes, I've seen it a few times, and it's okay. You don't have to lie. I've noticed." After a pause, he admitted, "Okay. Yes. I see other people. But it's not like I want them. I wouldn't trade you for anyone. I love you. You're the mother of my daughter. I love our life together. I'm good, honey." Then he got up, walked over to me, kissed me, and apologized, promising it won't happen again. That's when I told him it was actually okay if he looked, and even okay if he indulged, He nearly choked on his asparagus. I laughed, but he wasn't laughing. He just stared at me before finally asking, "Indulge?" "But I don't want to indulge with anyone else but you." "What are you getting at?" I explained how I wanted him to experience other women, and I thought maybe opening up our marriage could help. He burst out laughing, thinking it was a joke. "Are you serious? Is this some kind of prank? We're not opening up our marriage. Why would we do that? So you want me to start sleeping with a bunch of other women? Why would you put us through that?" "I'm fine, really." I told him, "It's not just for you. It's for me, too. I'm interested in meeting new people as well." My husband went completely quiet. Then he said, "Excuse me? You want to sleep with other men? What did I do to deserve this? Have I done something wrong? Please, tell me what's wrong." I tried to reassure him that I've never once felt dissatisfied in our relationship. Not ever. But he just couldn't understand why I wanted to be with other men. So I said, "Other guys are hitting on me, and it makes me feel attractive and beautiful. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep this weight off. You know I've struggled with it my whole life." He then asked, "So you feel like you've missed out on something, huh?" And I admitted, "Sort of." He sat back down, looking more serious than ever, and asked, "So what are the rules for this? We just start sleeping with other people. What about STDs and all that? Did you think about that?" I told him I had thought it through, and I believed we were both smart enough to know we should use protection. I laid out the rules I had in mind. No bringing anyone back to our home, and no hooking up with coworkers. I mentioned some dating apps I'd heard about, Hinge, Tinder, those kinds of things, where we could be upfront about our relationship status and meet people who were in the same boat as us. He asked me straight out if I had ever been on those sites behind his back, and I reassured him that I hadn't. I even handed over my phone and told him he could go through my laptop if he wanted. I'd never ever been on those kinds of sites. Surprisingly, my ex-husband didn't get angry. I was so scared he'd lose his temper. But at the end of dinner, he just said, "Okay, if that's what you want, we'll try it. But you know how much I value monogamy, so this is going to be a big change for me. But I'm willing to give it a shot." I was over the moon. I jumped right into setting up a dating app profile, making sure to mention that I was in an open marriage. Now, here's the thing. I didn't tell my husband about the guy at work who'd been seriously into me. He'd made it clear how much he was attracted to me, and he knew I was married. He'd even met my husband a few times. He showered me with compliments about my weight loss and kept telling me how beautiful I was. He'd joke that if I weren't married, he'd have his way with me. And at work, I found myself daydreaming about him constantly. I fantasized about him just taking me somewhere private at work, just doing it to me right there. Even though I'd started the dating app, I couldn't resist flirting more with him. Eventually, he picked up on the signals and invited me over to his place. It wasn't quite the fantasy I'd imagined, but it worked. During lunch breaks, we'd go to his place, and we started hooking up regularly. This time, I made sure to use protection. I didn't want to risk any pregnancy scares. And before anyone in the comments says I'm too old to have a baby, no, I'm not. Women my age have children all the time. Look it up. It's not uncommon at all. As time went on, any kind of intimacy between my husband and me just fizzled out. He wasn't kissing me like he used to. I'd have to make the first move just to get a kiss. Before, he was always the one who'd pull me close, plant a big kiss on me. And sometimes we'd end up in the bathroom or the bedroom. Anywhere in the house, really. He used to be such an animal in that way. It scared me because I knew he had a high libido, so if he wasn't getting it from me, he had to be getting it from someone else. The thought of my husband with another woman started to really get to me. I realized I didn't actually want to open up our marriage for him. I just wanted it for myself. But I kept sleeping with the guy from work, and I also met 2 other guys from the dating apps, and I slept with them too. When our daughter came home, we didn't say a word to her about the open marriage. We pretended everything was fine, but I could see it. My husband just wasn't the same. He didn't seem happy anymore. As the months passed, I started to notice that my husband seemed happier, like the sadness had lifted. Never in a million years did I imagine he'd get involved with our neighbor. She lives just 2 houses down from us, all by herself. She's never been married and doesn't have any kids. She was a lawyer between the ages of 26 and 34. But she ended up leaving that career to become a high school English literature teacher. She's very successful in her own right. She owns a restaurant here in town, which she opened with a partner. The restaurant is popular and doing really well. Her business partner was even on Shark Tank and found success there too. Despite all of that, she's also a school teacher, and it's something she absolutely loves doing. She told us once that she's always wanted to be a teacher, but her parents pushed her into law because they thought it was more lucrative. She's a really nice person, but also incredibly beautiful. I remember her mentioning to me and another neighbor that some parents had their kids switch classes because they didn't want her teaching them. And there were even students who tried to hit on her. She's careful about what she wears to work, knowing she's around teenage boys, so I have to give her credit for that. But honestly, she looks like a model. The thought that my husband would even think of doing something with her never crossed my mind. But looking back, I guess it makes sense. They work together, and she lives close by. When I found out, I couldn't really be mad at him because I had broken the same rule. Don't get involved with a coworker. And what did I do? I slept with a coworker multiple times. Even though I was the one who pushed for this open marriage, I still wanted to know who my husband was involved with. So, I started following him. He'd been telling me he needed to get to work earlier than usual. My husband is also a social studies teacher, so it wasn't odd for him to leave early to prep for class. But he started leaving even earlier, claiming he had to get to school to take care of some things. Naturally, I didn't buy it. I knew he was keeping something from me, probably because he knew he was breaking our agreement, specifically, the rule about not getting involved with a coworker. I didn't have to follow him far. I had bought a GPS tracker from Amazon and set it up in the trunk of his car. I was annoyed that I had to pay for a subscription service, which wasn't clear when I bought it, but it was worth it. So, after getting the device all set, I waited. When he left early one morning, I noticed on the map that he drove off, circled the block, and ended up right back on our street, only to park in our neighbor's driveway. When I saw it, I knew exactly which house he was at. I went outside to see for myself, and sure enough, his car was parked in her driveway. I guess his plan was to leave before I did, thinking, she'll never catch me because she doesn't leave for work until later. My husband was sleeping with this gorgeous teacher who lived right next door. It broke my heart because I felt like a fool. I had practically pushed my husband into the arms of another woman, a younger and, in many ways, a better woman than me. I decided I was going to confront my husband, but I wanted to wait until he came home that evening. When he walked in, I had dinner ready, exactly the way he likes it. As soon as we sat down, after he'd washed up, I didn't waste any time and went straight to the point. So, who have you been seeing? And don't even think about lying to me. He looked at me, clearly caught off guard, and said, "What?" I repeated myself, making it clear that I wanted to know who he'd been sleeping with. I could see him hesitating, probably considering whether or not to lie. But then he just came out with it. He admitted that he'd been sleeping with Jessica, the woman who lives a couple of houses down. I told him, I know you've been with her. But were you involved with her before I even brought up this open marriage? He promised me, no, I barely talked to her before. It just kind of happened. Perfect timing, I guess. When he said that, I felt my blood boiling. I was furious. He noticed and tried to calm me down, saying, "Honey, you're turning red. Calm down, calm down." But all I wanted to do was march over to that woman's house and tear her apart. Perfect timing? Are you kidding me? I snapped at him. I demanded that we close this open marriage right then and there. My husband looked me straight in the eyes and said, "We can close it, that's fine. But I also want a divorce. I don't want to stay married to you anymore." He got up from the table, didn't even finish his dinner, and walked to the bedroom, closing the door behind him to take a shower, only to leave and head straight to that woman's house. I was beyond hurt. But deep down, I knew I had brought this on myself. After all these years, my husband wanted to divorce me. How was I supposed to explain this to our daughter? I thought about lying to her, saying that her dad had replaced me with a younger woman, but I just couldn't do it. That very night, I called my daughter and told her everything. I cried on the phone, and she cried with me. She cursed me out, asking, "Why would you ask for something like that?" She was angry with her father too, thinking he must have wanted this all along and pushed me into it so he could be with that younger woman. I assured her that he didn't want this, that he didn't want to be with anyone else. I was the one who pushed him into another woman's arms. I think she started to believe me after I said that, but at first, she was convinced it was all her father's fault. I got myself a lawyer because my husband was serious about the divorce. I was served with the papers, and I signed them, doing what I had to do. When our lawyers, my husband and I, sat down together, we agreed to split everything right down the middle. My husband even offered to give me the house if I wanted it, but I didn't. I thought it would be better to sell it and split the money, and that's what we did. Split it evenly. No alimony, and of course, no child support. Our daughter isn't happy with either of us. Some days she doesn't know whether to be mad at me or her father, and some days she's just angry at both of us. She thinks I was foolish for asking for an open marriage, and she thinks her father was dead wrong for getting involved with a younger woman and moving on so quickly. She holds on to this hope that if her father leaves the woman he's with now, maybe he and I can rekindle our love. I'm willing to try to make things right. I'm sorry for what I did. But he's not willing to let her go. My ex-husband is still with her today, and it breaks my heart every time I see them together. I moved across town to a small condo, just 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, and I'm doing fine. I never gained the weight back. Now, I'm always in the gym, and it's easier to stay on top of my routine because I live closer to work. I don't have to drive as far, so I can hit the gym before or after work without any hassle. I'm eating healthy and trying to stay in shape. My ex-husband seems like he's genuinely happy. I don't know if he'll ever get married again, but I know I wouldn't. I was married to the man I was supposed to spend my life with, but I threw it all away. I played a stupid game, and I won a stupid prize. It's true what they say. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I look back and think about how I described my husband like he was the best man in the world. He took care of me, took care of our daughter. We never needed for anything, not a single thing. And yet, I cheated on this man, and he never had a clue. I got pregnant by my trainer years ago, and then I had the nerve to ask for an open marriage because of my own insecurities. No one's going to love me anymore once I get big again. I pushed that man straight into another woman's arms, and then I had the audacity to get jealous. It's silly, but it's the truth. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I know exactly where I went wrong, and at least I'm owning up to it.